Hey Wade,
Hey, Gary, how's it going?
fantastic. You look
Thank
fantastic.
you. Thank you. We're
What have you
starting to
been
look,
doing?
we're starting to look more and more alike.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Your hair's getting darker too.
Yeah, it's the winter. Winter. It was a lot of rain down here in California this year.
Oh, Wade, how have you been?
Uh, you know, um, been super busy, excited. We've been obviously been promoting the book a lot, the Ultimate Nutrition Bible, and following up on that. The company's growing exponentially with people all around the world getting happier, healthier. Fixing these niggling little things, the side effects of civilization as it is right now. And when you have solid solutions, I think it keeps you. There's a lot of people out there suffering, and it's nice to fill that gap a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, you are noticing that, right? You're noticing because you would be getting a lot of health related questions. I mean, we get a shit ton of health related questions, and I gotta imagine you guys are getting a lot right now too.
Yeah, I mean, we have a little bio tribe where we have a VIP group where people test a lot of our new products, and then we do a lot of deeper dives into that stuff. And then my customer service team, I have one of the largest customer service teams probably of any nutrition company. I've got, I think, around 20 customer service agents around the clock, around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've answered all of the questions that come in, and then we have a database. So I think I'm up to somewhere around 8,000 questions right now, and I train all my staff, and then anything that comes through that they don't know or I haven't answered before, I answer that. So I have a list
You
every
know,
week.
it's funny. That's exactly the way we do it because
Yeah,
you and I both have very specialized belief systems that people can't go get an education outside. And it's funny because like you've condensed yours into this Bible, and I've been getting ready because I finally made this turning point in my own personal health and my own personal performance. Like I've just shifted since I seen you last to it. I don't even know how to tell you. And now I'm ready to talk about how I got here and why I got here because I'm ready to show it.
oh, that's
So I'm
exciting.
starting in April, and I'm doing a 12-month. I'm doing a co-collaboration with our community to write a book, and I'm doing it once a month for 12 months. I'm doing it 90 minutes and putting everybody into a group, and part of their commentaries and answers and stuff like that are going to form the book because as you know, I feel I don't believe the way that we're even constructed. I don't buy into the normal way. I believe that bones are in structure. I believe the brain doesn't run the body. The brain is a secondary mechanism. I have all these beliefs about the body, and now I have evidence in my own body and people around me to to say, well, maybe I'm not right, but we have all this evidence that says that that's not acting the way that we thought it was. So we're going to be putting that in and then using that 1 year mechanism and feedback with, I don't know, probably 10,000 people. And we're
Yeah,
going to use that as a way to create the book.
yeah, that's really cool. One of my close friends is Paul Check, and he's a very sophisticated health advocate. And I was just chatting with Paul yesterday, and what people fail to recognize, and this is really deep, the more one becomes an expert. The more one becomes an expert, the easier it is to fall into a situation where I know that.
I know nothing.
And there's a discovery process, which is actually the foundation of the scientific method. The scientific method, most people don't understand, is not static. It is, I understand I don't have a 100% accurate model. However, from the model I have, I can produce a certain amount of results every time. And you continue to refine that with new inputs, new paradigms, new perspectives. And I think what separates you from a lot of, say, people who get locked into the medical community or the nutrition community or the chiropractic community or where you get a certain level of expertise and competency, that then becomes a limited paradigm. And it's not the whole picture. It's a working model that probably fixes a lot of people, but it's not the absolute truth. And
Yeah.
so it really takes a lot of courage and a lot of experimentation and a lot of willingness to continue to let go what you know to find something a new and a higher principle. So it's like moving forward, a yang activity, moving forward into your life in a yin open position. Like, oh, okay, well, let's see what happens next. Okay, let's do a 40-day fast. Let's do, some of these stretches that uncork fascia in a way that affects your organs. Who does that? Like, that's radical thinking, and it works. And if you talk to experts on all of those organs, 99.999% of them would say, well, that can't possibly work. But then if you explain through it, and they have enough courage to actually look at it like, oh, maybe there's something there. So I think that's a testimony to your listeners, because what typically happens is people who think in that type of framework, that are expansive in their nature and are thinking in terms of possibilities and potential and not into limitations, you tend to be separated out of the group, because most people are very uncomfortable with challenging the own paradigms of your life. That is essentially the growth thing. And we started as little kids, and then we just kind of calcify our belief systems.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's what it is. It's calcification of the belief system. That's exactly what it is. I'm very, very open to the fact that we have 20 million people around the world doing this, and we have results coming in tens of thousands on a daily basis where they're accurately. We said measure in this way and report it to us, and they are. And so we know it works, and I have a belief about why it works, but I've also had several beliefs since I got into medicine back in full time into 2011, that I said for sure this is the way it is, and they're wrong. And I'm just smart enough to as we keep growing to say I don't know, and I find that when I'm in the position of I can be completely wrong, and I want everybody else to go out there and tell me what they find. I find that it helps everybody grow rather than me. And if everybody grows, I'm just part of them, and that's where I like to be. I don't want to be the leader. I want to be a part of a community of people that is discovering.
yeah, and that's what's the beauty of things like social media. So the upside of it is free thinking people who would normally question themselves about, well, because innate to that is a questioning of the current paradigm belief systems from where you find yourself, whether it's a school, whether it's your community, whether it's your family, whether it's your environment, whether it's a doctor, like whatever you're taking your inputs in. And it's something that doesn't feel right. And people feel this all the time, but they're conditioned to shut that down. And because they're like, well, nobody thinks like me. But all of a sudden you get on, your Instagram, and there's 20 million people around the world that are thinking like you. Well, then it feels, oh wow, there's a whole opportunity. And the other thing about, you talk about, it's kind of like the service-based leisure. When I go into a meeting in my business, the first thing that I usually say is, hey, what the heck do I know? Explain to me what's going on here. And by setting the tone, the people who have inputs, from the different departments or whatever, are now encouraged to bring forth their information. So you have another input of the situation. All of a sudden you have, instead of I know what's going on, and people going, well, we're going to go down this way because, the quote unquote leader has said this. It's better where it's like, no, what do you guys think? And then you can kind of collectively work together in a symbiotic way. All you're really doing is curating the great ideas that people are tapping into, and then refining them and experiencing them. And well, let's try that, see what happens. And we have a test, learn, grow, evolve process. That's what we call. We suggest, synergize, and solve. That's our methodology. And then we go test, learn, grow, and evolve. So we test to see if it works. We learn what happens. We grow into a new way of thinking, and then we continually recognize that's part of evolution. It's not the absolute, but it's what's the next step. And then life becomes an adventure. And you see this with babies. The baby's not worried about getting to the store very long. It stops to pick up the grass. It looks at the bug on the ground. It wants to smell the flowers. It wants to pet the dog. It doesn't care if it gets to the store, because watching children is a great example of that openness that they have, because they're not constructed by time and space the way people are when you canonize your thought process. And for people who are looking at health or don't have health, and they're finding your place because they're suffering and they can't get answers. That's the critical piece, is you have to realize is that the healing part, first one has to identify the paradigm that you're locked in. Like, okay, people have said I can't fix myself. People have said I can't do this. The doctor gave me this thing. They said that's going to happen. Okay, all that is a bunch of collective belief systems that has a certain amount of truth relative to that person's experience, but it's not absolute truth.
Right.
So if it's not absolute truth, that means there is a new paradigm somewhere. And, when we met, I think over a decade ago, I was really clear that you were committed to continuously breaking paradigms at whatever the cost. And you had a lot of really smart, competent people working with you, and they get frustrated because you get to this level and you'd be like, no, we got to go beyond that. And they just couldn't keep up to the speed of your willingness to surrender what you know, to find something better, and look at what happened after.
Well, what's funny though is that, but in the same way, this is what you were like, is because you went against the norm in nutrition, the belief and supplementations, even right down to you share a belief that I have, which is that the first source of fuel is not food. It's our air, our breathing, and our efficiency to do such. And a lot of that, which is interesting because it transcends right into our conversation today, is our blood sugar levels. Because if our blood sugar levels are down, we are going to fire a cascading series of hormone levels in order to adapt, and we get this spiking back and forth, which takes us out of our ability to actually adapt to our world. And you've approached this from a standpoint of absorption, and also from a standpoint of enzymes and bacteria to help the body regulate this. And this is a completely new way of thinking.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. For most people, make a common assumption, and I did this for years, and I was trained in nutrition and exercise physiology at university level, and I had a successful bodybuilding career going to the Mr. Universe contest. So this was all about calories, protein, carbohydrates, fats, a few minerals and fiber, etc. like that. Okay, so that could allow you to achieve a certain cosmetic edge, but there was something missing, and I had my complete meltdown after my first Mr. Universe contest. I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks after, and I was like, I remember thinking, wait a second, I'm here representing Canada at the World Championships in what's aesthetic ideas.
Right.
Okay, it's an aesthetic goal in bodybuilding. You know all about bodybuilding. You had a history as a bodybuilder, and it was like, there's something I don't know here. How could I produce such a great result here and have such a terrible result within 11 weeks after this contest? And I found a doctor named Dr. Michael O'Brien. And he was the most radiant, vibrant human being I had ever met. And he was in his 70s. And he gave us lectures, and I said, Matt, we got to go see this guy. So we went back and went to a professional lecture with him that he had given. I don't know if I've ever told this, but he had just broken his back 7 weeks before. And he gave a full seminar all day in his late 70s. He never got treated for his back. He never got the spinal fusion in the back. He got nothing done of that sort of stuff. He just loaded up with minerals and all these enzymes and probiotics. And he never ate during the entire 8-hour lecture. And I was like, as a bodybuilder, you're like, every meal to keep your blood sugar in this certain ratio, you're like, 3 hours, man, you got to be on the chow wagon, you know what I mean? And this paradigm just shattered everything that I knew. And I went up to him and I asked him, I said, Dr. O'Brien, what happened to me? Like I gained all this, like I'm supposed to be this, and again, what do I don't understand? He says, he said to me, wait, you know how to build the body from the outside in. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out. And he taught me about enzymes and probiotics. So when you put food in your mouth, there's chewing, and then the food's got to go down the esophageal tract into the upper cardiac portion of the stomach, and it sits there, and that's where the enzymes are supposed to break it down. That you eat in the food, but nobody has enzymes in their food any now. Tell people. Then you get hydrochloric acid that comes in 30 to 60 minutes. That's supposed to disinfect and change the food pH, where some enzymes will become deactivated, other ones will be activated, so you break your proteins into amino acids. And then you have buffers that come in, minerals that buffer the acid before the food goes into the intestinal tract, and to alkalize it a bit more. And then what happens in there is you have these things called probiotics. Now it's collectively referred to as your microbiome, which are up to hundreds of strains of bacteria cultures, and they work symbiotically together. Now there's 10% good, 10% bad, 80% opportunists. Now this ratio of populations in your intestines are changing constantly. So when you go, oh, I didn't feel good on that, or that upset my stomach. No, you feed these bacteria, and they convert your food into energy, building blocks, neurotransmitters, antioxidants, polyphenols, all these different elements. But guess what? If you've got a disproportionate of bad bacteria, they produce toxins, which lead to brain fog, low energy, all sorts of medical conditions, and guess what? Dysregulation of blood sugar. The other thing that can happen is you have a thin lining of mucus, where these bacteria cultures will live. And if they don't have a lot of food, they kind of hibernate. And if you have the right food for them, they kind of start to grow. So they can kind of go to, but sometimes we'll get exposed to pesticides and chemicals or medications or different types of genetically modified food. And we get breaks in that mucoid layer. And then what happens is food doesn't get eaten up properly by the bacteria and converted into into building blocks or energy units. You got food leaking into the bloodstream. Now, what happens there is your white blood cells are going to come in because they think you're under attack. They think there's a virus. They think there's an invader. They got to go break this up. So you get all this increase in white blood cell. You feel tired. You feel energy. Why? Because your blood starts to thicken. And as your blood thickens, it's harder for your heart to pump. So your blood pressure goes up. The number one day for heart attacks in the United States, which is the leading cause of death, is guess what? Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Because when people take all of this food, they can't digest it. The blood thickens up. Blood sugar goes crazy. Your blood turns to molasses. And then the heart, if you got narrowing of the arteries, it contracts your preconditions for heart disease. Boom. That's when you have your heart attack. So blood sugar is actually related to heart disease, and it's related to cancer. Okay? So they're all correlated together. They're diagnosed as heart disease. They're diagnosed as cancer. They're diagnosed as diabetes. And then, of course, you have the third leading cause of death, which is medical error. In other words, you're taking this drug for that drug and that drug to counteract that drug. Yeah. And then you take something and something goes wrong and you have another problem, or you have to get a surgery and things don't go right from the surgery or something. So we have to recognize that's a paradigm. The whole thing is a paradigm. So how do you reverse this? Well, there's a lot of different things that you can do to improve your blood sugar. And I highly recommend as an experiment for individuals, because you'll read about blood sugar tables, for example, to give people how crazy the information is for people. Okay, ice cream is low glycemic. And what that means is the blood sugar response that they'll give out by dietary recommendations is that ice cream is low. Why? Because it's a combination of carbohydrates and fats. And the fats slow the absorption of the blood sugar. So when they do a glycemic test. Now, here's another thing. Carrots are high glycemic. Now, I always say to people, okay, like, let's just look at this for a second. You can eat all the carrots that you want in your life. You will not get fat and you will not get diabetes.
Right.
You definitely can't do that with ice cream. And
Right.
I like ice cream as much as anybody. I have an ice cream usually like once a month, twice a month. There's an ice cream place and they make great ice cream here. It's like this natural organic ice cream.
Oh, in Venice, that place, I heard about it.
Yeah. It's right by my house. It's right by my door. So when it's spike day, I have my ice cream. So, but now we have this technology called a continuous glucose monitor. And, like you can get Nutrisense or something like that. This is a game changer for people's mindset. Okay, because what happens is there's a little thing you stick on your arm, you put a patch on it, and it hooks into your phone, and you get a reading of your blood sugar through everything. So for example, you could drink a coffee in the morning, nothing with it, and for some people, their blood sugar will go through the roof. Another person will have no response. You might eat potatoes, your blood sugar goes through the roof. I eat potatoes, nothing. Right? And so there's a massive individual variance in the impact to your body, your blood sugar levels. And so what I recommend for people who are struggling with blood sugar management, weight gain, weight loss, is they want to keep their body at a steady blood sugar level all of the time. And you want to check which foods start to spike for you, like, oh, okay, because guess what? It's not just all the food. There may be subconscious and emotional connections to different types of food that's
exactly
triggering
it.
responses. And that sounds so crazy, but I'll give an example.
By the way, Wade, we actually that's part of our program. We talk about how the body memorizes emotions and how food is the save button on that emotion.
Correct. And I've watched this, I coached over 15,000 athletes, and you would put them on diets or whatever, and then I would have them chart how foods made them feel, how they were the next day, what's going on. But I'll give people an example. I bet every single person on here right now has a favorite food that someone close to them made. Maybe it was grandma's cookies,
Yeah.
We
always do. Yeah, we always have that. Yeah.
And maybe you had that in a particular time in your life that was emotionally charged. Whether, like I can think of, when I think of chocolate chip cookies, I think of coming home from school and my mom taking out chocolate chip cookies. Or I think of last year, I had my mom write down all of my favorite recipes that she made throughout childhood, and I put them all in on my phone so I could always have them, because as soon as I have tomato rice soup, I think of my mom.
Right.
As soon as I have that, there's certain things, and we connect these emotions. Now, we could have also negative emotions about something.
Yeah.
Maybe you were forced to eat something. Maybe you got bullied when you were having a ham sandwich or something when you were, as a child. And some of these things you don't even remember. But when you have a continuous glucose monitor, you can even just get close to that food and your blood sugar will go up. So
blood sugar goes up.
Correct.
So by the way, I got to tell you this, because what I tell people is that a hormonal disruption like anger, fear, sadness, or shame, or guilt, or whatever, dysregulates your blood sugar more than anything else. And I've been saying this like public for years, and like getting bashed all over social media for saying that. But now what you're saying is the science of it now is proving it to be true.
Yeah, I got to grab 1 second here. So that brings up something so important. So there was a book written by Dr. David Hawkins.
Yes.
And he wrote a thing called The Map of Consciousness.
Yeah.
And in that map, he identified, so he was a world famous psychiatrist that developed a map of consciousness. And he said, all disease, all sickness has its fundamental base in a subconscious feeling of guilt or shame.
Yeah.
And so the disease is an opportunity to dive deeper into that. And he wrote a whole book. He's got like 10, 12 books in the whole series, but he wrote another one on healing and recovery.
Yes.
And he talked about you can you could get a surgery or you could get something and you're recovered in the eyes of the world, but you haven't healed the actual trauma. He said you
Right.
could also heal the trauma and not recover from the world, but you've recovered spiritually, you've recovered emotionally, you've recovered internally. And whether you survived or not was not the thing, because you've overcome that. We're all going to die at some point. And that's just, you graduate from school, hopefully, is the idea, or you got to go back and repeat the cycle. So the concepts in that, and he explains there's an attraction and an aversion to every state of consciousness. So you have to recognize, if I'm feeling guilty about something, there's a payoff. There's a subconscious payoff that I get to feel guilt about that because I got conditioned for guilt. And that will manifest into things like overeating, eating the wrong things, feeling guilty about it. So I go have an ice cream. I don't feel guilty about the ice cream. I don't eat ice cream every day, but I consciously, if I have a food that I have a perception, a belief, an idea, a concept about that's wrong, then I go, well, why is that wrong? Why do I feel so strongly about it? Why do I have an emotional reaction to this? And you see this with different cultures and different food types and all these things. And so you get this convolution of information that's coming from the scientific community based on cultural values, which actually determine, the study results. That's why a study in Japan might not be repeatable in the United States because of the culture that the study happened in.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about genetics, but there's epigenetics, which is your responses, and then there's psychological stuff. You get into the Jungian philosophy and understanding the shadow side of your consciousness and the light side of your consciousness, and these polarities, like the devil and the angel on your shoulders. So all of this is influencing you, and it's really great when whenever you're doing stuff. What's really cool about the work that you're doing with the fascia is you're actually going where that's locked in.
Yeah. We actually call it.
Uncorking.
We call it, or I call it. I'm actually in my because I've never ever taught how fascial maneuvers got discovered. I've only taught the end result. It works. But emotional genetics, which is based highly on my perceptive awareness, how I perceive my world and how I reframe it, and this is where it comes in from Hawkins and stuff like that. Those are all building blocks onto this understanding that I got that allowed this to happen.
Yeah. So for our listeners that are watching this, so we just went to the we went to the Star Wars galaxy and back. I do suggest if you and your family, or you have a history of blood sugar issues, you need to get that straightened out. Like, that is the precursor to all major illnesses.
So when you say straighten it out, because let's talk about that specifically, because it's most people, the first thing is they go and they go, well, I'm going to start eliminating all these foods. Well, some of them they probably should, but it's more about how our body processes it, how we utilize it. Because even when I have the right bacteria in my gut, I have a positive thought. I have more serotonin, means I see options. I don't have the fear, shame, anger, guilt. So this is why these emotions are controlled by our bacteria. We are our bacteria. If our bacteria mad, we mad.
That's right. So there is a symbiotic relationship between the bacteria cultures and us. And this is what people don't understand in digestion. And we have a lab in Bosnia. We've got over 20 PhDs and master students doing round-the-clock experiments to see what happens when you feed different types of bacteria, different types of foods, what things they produce. For example, most people don't realize that 95% of their serotonin, that's the feel-good hormone essentially, and your sense of confidence within a dominance hierarchy. This is a nervous system that's well explained by Jordan Peterson, and we share it with lobsters, every species, and it's what drives the fashion industry. It's what drives the cosmetic industry. It's what drives the fitness industry. It's what drives the financial information thing. So our sense of security in the world and our confidence within our community and within ourselves is directly correlated to serotonin levels. And serotonin is produced in the gut by a few strains of bacteria. And if you've taken antibiotics, you've been exposed to a lot of chemicals, if you went through a stressful period of your time that was like really traumatic, you can wipe out all of those bacteria in one day.
Yeah.
And then you got a twofold effect. One, you've got a bacteria, you don't have enough good guys anymore. Number two, you have an emotional or psychological trauma. And then what happens from that is your body is going to go into some sort of response mechanism. Now, a small percentage of people may use that traumatic emotional experience to trigger a change in their life, and they take off. For most people, they'll go to an authority, a psychologist, a medical doctor, a whatever, who is going to treat the symptoms of that condition. Maybe put you on an antidepressant, maybe put you on a diabetic medication because now you're emotional eating and you're eating at the wrong times or the wrong things, and your blood sugar, you don't have the bacteria in there to regulate how you're eating food. Maybe they're going to run a bunch of tests on you, and they find something else, and then you're like, oh, you know, I feel guilty about this thing. You know, that person died in my life, and I didn't forgive myself for that, or you know, maybe I didn't do enough, or a traumatic relationship broke up. So you start building all these psychological frameworks as your body is building meaning out of the trauma, and so you've got multiple levels of psychological, emotional, and biological components. And so once you understand this, is go, okay, whatever you're experiencing, and I don't care how bad it is, you see it, car accidents,
Yeah.
traumatic situations, horrible human conditions, just suffering unmanageable, the worst things happening to people. And that there's always some people that find ways out of it. Well, how do they do it? They reframe the psychology, they do the emotional work, and they support their physiology to replenish the symbiotic relationship that they have with nature, in the nature inside them and the nature outside them. And then they're able to heal. They're able to recover. And then that's so exciting. They usually start to share it. And I've been down that journey. You've been down that journey. And that's what makes the human condition enjoyable.
You know, and this is why our partnership with you has been so important, because what we do is we, you know, I went through testing. I had 10,000 active patients that I tested on. I did 50,000 unpaid for tests, and in the clinic in California. And what I was looking for is I was looking for answers that because I saw these anomalies in people's health. Like I saw a mother having her subclinical liver, kidney, bladder issues. And I saw the kids having the same ones. Change the mother, the kids would change. So I was trying to codify that with science somehow. And what I found is that if we do less for the body, and we just take care of the hydration, which our supplements do, the inflammation, which our supplements do, the absorption and the processing, which your supplements do, and you put those together and you do the movements, then people are able to exit themselves out of those conditions. And what people that we see, people that go through our 28-day reset, they do not take the biooptimizer supplements. And we see the people that do, and we can track it. We can track the ones who take the supplements have better results, the ones who do it and also carry on afterwards for a period of time, because their whole lives are starting to change. And it makes a big difference. It's inside out.
Yeah, well, if you've lost the bacteria in your body, and most people are enzymatically deficient, by adding those elements like enzymes and probiotics, and they have to be high quality with the right prebiotics inside of them so that they get traction. Your dietary recommendations are always spot on for people, which are great for people to experiment with. And when you combine those things, you repopulate your gut microbiome so that you have all of these trillions of bacteria that are supporting your entire system. So basically what you're doing is you're adding a workforce to your biology. Enzymes and probiotics do all the work in the body. Everything from thinking to blinking requires an enzyme. There's 25,000 plus different enzymatic pathways. Enzymes are accelerators, they're catalysts, they speed up biochemical transactions inside your body. So it's like having an energy bank account. If you have more money in your bank account, you can do more things. You can take more trips, you can buy more cars, you can live in more houses, you can eat more food. Same thing with enzymes. And we used to get this from our food, live, raw food. The raw food movement all developed because of the preservation of the enzymes in food. Because when you cook food, it kills all the enzymes.
You lose it.
Now, there's all kinds of people that cook food, and there's reasons for cooking food that will kill off, like if you're eating meat and stuff, you got to kill off the bad guys. So I'm not saying don't eat meat, and I'm not saying go via raw food. I'm saying what is the element that differentiates both of those diets? So that's enzymes and probiotics. So we're under so much biochemical stress in the world today. And I would say psychological stress with all the negativity and social media and governments and, stress from economic situations and stuff, is that you got to recognize, okay, there are all these forces that are trying to take you out physiologically and take you out emotionally and take you out spiritually. So it makes sense that you want to put these into your system and give yourself more biological capacity to handle this stuff,
That's my greatest thing, because I don't eat a lot now, and I eat probably half of what I did when I saw you last. But I make choices of what I want to eat. I make choices on how it delivers. And because of you, I think of things like live enzymes. I didn't think of that, in 2018. But today I think, oh, live enzyme, this is easier. It uses less energy, because for me, it's about energy consumption. And it's funny because I ask my body always, but if I'm going to eat something and do something, I want more energy. So I always will then take the HCl, the magnesiums, and the P3OM, because what I'm doing is I'm taking out a lot of work that my body has to do unnecessarily right now. And it's not because my body can't do it. It's because even in the best food today, it's not the way it used to be.
No.
The enzymes aren't there, the bacteria aren't there, the minerals aren't there. So it's like people ask me, well, why do you use a water filter and why do you use an NLV? Well, because our air is screwed up, and because our water is screwed up, and because our food, our culture, our transportation, our shipping, all that stuff is screwed up. It helps. It's not that I need it, it just makes it better.
The great Thomas Sowell, I think, who is one of America's great philosophers, he says there are no solutions in life, only trade-offs. And what you're talking about is, hey, you and I are in different parts of the world right now, and we're able to communicate with millions of people around the world thanks to the technology of the phone and the internet and electricity and all of these systems built on side of systems, which is the modern world. Awesome. But there's consequences to having those advantages.
Yeah.
And we're so far down the I could do that. I'd like to do that. But right now, I need to kind of keep this stable and keep this story going. So this is what we're advocating for. It's like, okay, that's your life right now. Maybe you want to have this other life in the future. But let's give you technological resources that offset the side effects of the modern technology, which is disrupting you. And enzymes and probiotics are one of those things. Minerals are one of those things. And you kind of do something that's really unique, is you're giving people a set of practices that they can do on a daily basis to remind them of who they are, what they are, and what's possible in your life. When you take your food, why do people have prayers before they do food? Well, the idea was to take a second and just celebrate and recognize. And so going back to your psychological model, they've already proved that praying over your food, which is essentially just setting an intention and moving on the positive emotional scale, I'm giving gratitude and thanks and connection with the people I'm eating with, that changes your blood sugar response. It changes food that may be detrimental to you to be not detrimental, just by conscious. That's how powerful our perception is. And that's why in our book we said, there's no evil food. There's like, you got to let
Yeah.
go of the psychological. That doesn't mean go out and eat French fries and ice cream every day until you take a heart attack or die of diabetes. No, it means is, if I'm like I use this example when I'm dealing with like hardcore experts that are really locked into a diet stuff, and I'm like, okay, what's the worst food that you could have? And they'll say, McDonald's or something, right? And I'm like, okay, great. Let me ask you a question. You have a person there, family. They've been starving for 2 months. They're about ready to die. Now they can't access the food that you're recommending or suggesting or doing. The only thing they can get is McDonald's. Should they eat that McDonald's and stay alive, or should they just die of starvation? Well, no, they should eat McDonald's. Okay, is that evil? No. And you see them, and all of a sudden they come right smack up against the paradigm. I'm not suggesting people go eat McDonald's. I'm not suggesting they don't eat McDonald's. I'm just trying to share that how we build these little rigid paradigms that trap us
The
into a thing
rigidity of
because
the
it's comfortable.
paradigm. That's what it is. And that's what we're teaching people is that the rigidity of the paradigm is more acidic than the diet, the food, and that paradigm is our perception, frames up our emotions, which, like you said, changes blood sugar immediately.
Yeah. And you talked about another thing. So then you go to the other side of the thing. You fasted for what, 44 days, I think it was?
Yeah.
You didn't eat for 44 days and you're jumping around and leaping around. People go, where'd you get all the energy? Well, you just got all the free energy. There's all kinds of free energy around.
I can't wait till the rest of the world wants to do this, because right now I eat every day and I go, I've been pushing my eating off to like 3 in the afternoon. And then I go, okay, I'm going to eat with the team. And I'm like, okay, from there, I get everything done because I know my energy. Not, I mean, not that I have lots of energy, but my perception is a better way of saying it, slips down while I'm in the digestive state, because I spent so much time fasted. I got used to that perception. I can't wait till we all say, I want to fast for a month.
Yeah, by the way, I just took a friend of mine who's got a relatively serious medical diagnosis, and he was looking at his options. I'm just like, well, why don't you do 40 days and 40 nights of water fasting?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
I
best
think
thing.
what was surprising, he walked out of that meeting that we had in Vancouver. I said, look, get a couple things organized. You want to do this, I'll help you. I call him up 5 days later. I'm like, so did you get those things done? He said, no, I just went home and stopped eating. I
Yeah.
did it. And he just did 40 days. This is a person that never was
Oh,
on
did
a
he do
diet in his
40
life.
days?
He did the whole 40 days,
Hey,
40 days.
hey, can you hook me up with him? I want to talk to other people that have done that.
Yes, he's in Vancouver, so I will connect you guys.
Yeah, because you know what? There's so for me, one of the things that happened, you talk about memory and all this. One of the things that happened I want to share with you is that after 28 days, what I found, even now, if I fast for a month, um, I know, I like that food. I no longer have the memory of it, meaning that memory is a feeling,
Wow.
not a thought. And so
Wow.
like I could not tell you what it tastes like. I have no way to describe it. And so what happened was is I got to go back, because if I every time I got abused by a parent, I went and soothed myself with ice cream. Well, if I've never had a break from it, 40 years later, I eat that ice cream. Part of that emotions, that feeling comes back up. It's bringing the memory up, which keeps us trapped in the cycle. This is why fasting is a religious practice, is to break that.
That's right.
And yeah, and I'm curious because the anything over 28 days in the fast, we break the human habituation cycle. I literally want to talk to him.
I will connect you guys. And yeah, it's remarkable. And it shows that anybody can do this. This fellow is, a senior citizen, and he just did it, with, like I said, a serious medical
I'm
diagnosis. And he
so happy for him.
decided to do that. So, and under those conditions, show that anybody can do that. And what came up during that process, and what comes up in those processes of extended fasting is all of the unconscious garbage that comes up, and we tie food so much to it. So you go through these periods of emotional and psychological detoxification. And And it's amazing how many people's blood sugar corrects after doing this, and their awareness of blood sugar, how food affects them, becomes really clear.
Did you ever follow Dr. Sebi?
No.
SEBI. So he's the only doctor to prove that he could cure disease, and he went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then serendipitously he dies of an accident, shortly after. But he proved the curing of hundreds of diseases. SEBI. He has a diet recommendation, but he could tell you on what day of the fast which disease went away. And he literally, the FDA took him to court. He spent like 17 years in this battle. He was the one that took, when Magic Johnson had AIDS, went to him. That's how Magic Johnson got rid of AIDS.
Wow.
And so we have all of these celebrities and people that would go to this guy. And so he used the scientific method, so he documented everything, and he had the medical evidence that could not be refuted. And he's the only person ever prove he could cure a disease, and he did it through all fasting.
Oh, that's not surprising, but I didn't know the story, so I'll have to find out more about that. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it was so. There was two things, him and then a breatharian called Ray Minori, who they put him on a myth buster. They try to bust him cameras 24 hours a day to make sure he didn't eat or drink. And he worked out, did his normal things, and they actually paid him out the $100,000 to bust the myth. And those two guys alone gave me the confidence to believe that I could do it.
I first read about that. I remember in the autobiography of the Yogi, Yogananda talked about two different saints in that didn't eat. One was Therese Newman, the Bavarian stigmatist, who would go through every month. She'd go through the stigmatic, like the Christ wounds and everything, which is that's been reported by a bunch of different people, like in high spiritual states. And then there was another lady by the name of Giri Bali, who was a mystic in a remote part of India who was given a technique and didn't eat as well. And so what the process of fasting is to actually, like you said, is to unlock all of those things. Now, people don't have to go that extreme. At some point, it's a calling for higher awareness. And that calling might be today. It might be 5 years from now or 10 years from now or whatever. So that's okay. Just know that all things are possible with the application of faith.
Yes. And this is part of it. Is like, so this is where it really tips scale, because faith, people try to go right to faith, and if you try to go right to faith from a belief system that's not congruent, then there's almost always a failure. So for me, I fasted for 3 days. First of all, I had all this evidence that I couldn't refute. So then I fasted for 3 days. I made it. I believed it. I kept raising my belief and then getting evidence to raise my belief. And when we were in the fast, I remember Jason, Cynthia, and I would be like, it's bizarre. We'd go to the fridge, open up the door. We would do it like a couple times a day. And we did this still, like we're talking 20, 30 days into the fast, we still do it. And it was about the 30th day we stopped opening the fridge door. And it was like, we didn't have a plan on how long to fast. We just decided to fast. And then we felt so good, we didn't want to change it. And then we would ask each other, I'm like, are you hungry? Are you going to eat? No, I don't think I am. And I'm like, because I'm thinking I'm hungry. And you go, I can tell you're not. So we were able to self-correct each other, because we lived, worked, breathed, slept together. So we were able to self-correct with each other. But that experiment I needed a little bit more belief each time with evidence to then have faith. And even then, after that, even after the 40 days, I went back to eating. And then I started doing other things in my fasting. Like now, if I fast over 10 days, I don't sleep.
Yeah, not uncommon. And this is, it's well documented in Hindu philosophy and of a lot of the spiritual techniques. And they do essentially, they're converting what they call life force energy into prana and revolving fun. And so,
technically that's your belief too, though, because you believe that the first energy is breath. And then from there, so I agreed that food is a medicine, not a fuel. So, and that medicine allows the body to function better and absorb and adapt. But the thing I kept getting up against is that if the body's producing stem cells when I don't eat, that stem cells can be, and when properly utilized, can be used to cure, fix, work with anything. So then if I eat, I'm not producing those stem cells. So at one point, it's like, I gotta think that that we weren't even supposed to. Maybe there's a higher state of consciousness for a human being where we don't have to, and those are the boundaries I'm pushing right now.
One of the great experiments people can do to witness the creation is to get, and this was a transformative experience for me, is I put a little piece of bamboo, living bamboo, in a glass with some stones in the bottom and some water. And as I watch that, I see this plant growing. You see it, there's only stones and water, and here's a green plant growing. So by watching that, it changed my paradigm of how things are created, how things are formed, how our bodies work, like how the universe is built. And I think growing something like that in a situation like that is transformative because you can just observe. And so I encourage people to observe themselves, observe how food eats them, observe hunger, watch their emotions, watch their thoughts, see what triggers them into unconscious. Like you said, what you're talking about is this conditioned response to go to the fridge and find something. There's a pattern system there that's not within your regular consciousness, it's in the subconscious, right? And as you unwind these things, you're able to input these other elements. Now, going back to the blood sugar, so people are probably coming up on the hour, and I got another call here coming. So what are the things that people can do in order to, if they want to get their blood sugar down? I'll give the whole gamut, and then people can figure it out. So number one is start doing your fascia maneuvers every day, right off the bat. That's going to start opening up not just the organs, but also open up the exploration of your emotions and psychology, which are connected to that. That's number one. Number two, take enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and probiotics with your food, or at least enzymes and probiotics every day. A great test for hydrochloric acid is people can take a tablespoon or teaspoon of baking soda, put it in like 4 ounces of water, stir it up, like, one of those little cups, and drink it on an empty stomach. If you burp within 5 minutes, you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid. You're producing enough hydrochloric acid. If you don't, then if you don't burp within 5 minutes, you need hydrochloric acid. The older we are,
that's a good test.
It's an easy test that anybody can do. So that's when you would add hydrochloric, like a tablet of hydrochloric HCl breakthrough with every meal. But before your meal, take a few enzymes. And in the evenings, make sure that you take some P2M probiotics. That's your foundation. If you're really struggling with blood sugar, you can use 2 other elements. Blood sugar breakthrough, which is a combination of 13 different herbs with a very special berberine in it, and there's
berberine.
3 different types of blood sugar. So one helps to manage the blood, one pumps it into the glucose. So there's transporters, there's repartitioners, and it's a great product that people can try. And magnesium. What's interesting is magnesium is a control mineral involved in over 600 different processes. They used to think it was 300. Now they know it's over 600. Most people are depleted in magnesium. I call it the miracle mineral. There is a whole study on the Pima Indians who had a genetic over response in their culture because their culture was all about hunting. They only ate meat. When they were in regular society, they all got diabetes and had all these issues and blood sugar regulations, like over 95% of the population of the Pima Indians. They put them on magnesium, and all their blood sugar issues went away. They started losing just from using magnesium because that was the element that they were missing. So those things are great components. And then start experimenting with fasting. And if you really are scientific in mind and you need some hard quantitative data, get a continuous glucose monitor like NutriSense, wear that sucker for 2 weeks to a month, and watch and connect your feelings, emotions, your energy levels and your psychology with your foods or with environments, and you'll see these readings change. And you're like,
Right.
I had no idea that. And you'll see if you have a family member that's doing this, you'll eat the exact same dinner and you'll have completely different responses to it, which destroys all of the paradigms on glycemic index and
Yeah.
glucose
Yeah.
lowering and all that
I
stuff.
don't believe any of that shit. I never have, actually. I'm, you know what, Wade?
And yet it's promoted all over the place. So and so people have to recognize that that's a paradigm, and you can transcend that paradigm. Now you've done the work, you've done the effort, you've done the experiment, and people just haven't busted that paradigm to the level that you're willing to go with that. But that's why they're attracted to you. Because if you're on this podcast or if you're on this Instagram live, if you are connected with Garry and the Human Garage and this movement, this global movement of health transformation, your inner being, your soul, your consciousness is saying, yes, I'm ready to let go of the paradigm of suffering, the paradigm of disease, the paradigm of dysfunction, the paradigm of victimhood, the paradigm of whatever that paradigm, that's not serving you anymore. That's why they're with you. That's why they're connected to you. That's why we're there with the Human Garage. And that's why we're so grateful to support all your people. By the way, anybody that tries their products is 100% money back guarantee. They try it and they don't feel better than ever, we just give you your money back. It's really simple. We'd rather redeploy
You
that.
know what?
And it's for one of the
You're
fastest growing companies in the world.
you're you're changing the entire world of health, because there has been this paradigm of belief systems about how things work, and the reason why we're taking hormones and vitamins and supplements is because we're not absorbing and processing. And the reason why we have mental health issues is because our enzymes and bacteria are out of ratio. And all of this connects directly to unrestricting and rehydrating the body, which then allows us to change our perception. And each one of these little things that we do together allow people a greater belief. And as they have a greater belief, they can actually change their destiny. That's why I love working with you, Wade. It's been such a pleasure, this whole journey here of working with you. You are such a master at what you do. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you in social. And that's what by the way, that's what we're setting up for. We're getting all these resorts around the world so we could do that.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much.
And by the way, just letting you know, looks like I'm coming into to LA to do some podcasts. I think it's going to be end of March, and we're going to do a pop-up event with 500 people. I'll let you know, but it would be
Sweet.
great if you guys could show up.
That'd be awesome. Thanks so much. God bless you. God bless everybody. And we'll see you on the next time I'm on, and hopefully soon in
Thanks,
LA.
Wade. It's been so enlightening. I love talking to you.
Me too. Take care.
Guys.